Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. One of the best new brands, new micro brands to launch last year in 2024, in my humble opinion of course, was Ubiq watches out of Singapore. They launched in February last year with their dual model and I was really impressed. I was impressed with the design of the watch, I was impressed by the colour schemes they used in that design, and I was impressed with just how polished the overall package was, considering this was a first offering. The one thing I was not so impressed by was the price. At the 11th hour, they decided for some reason to make the watch more expensive, and I think the Kickstarter campaign struggled as a consequence. Only 70 backers for a project this good was a real surprise and a bit of a disappointment to me, and I have no doubt also to the brand owner Drayson. Well, Ubiq are back with watch number 2. The design is impressive, the overall package is impressive, and this time, thankfully, so is the price. The Ubiq Trek in full titanium with hardness coating starts at only $239. Now you can spend up to $500 US on a better spec version of the same watch with an optional bracelet, but I suspect that the much more approachable entry point to the range will mean that quite a few more than 70 people jump on this one. Now you saw the pop-up. This video is sponsored by Ubiq. I will therefore of course leave links to both their website and to the specific Kickstarter campaign in the description of the video. This one goes live on the 21st until the 30th of June. I did tell you it was a crazy couple of months for micros, May and June. There's just so much going on at the moment, it's hard to keep up. But let's start with the packaging. One of the highlights of the Jewel was the packaging, and it's the same packaging here. I mean, I know we don't buy watches for the boxes, but there is definitely a feel-good factor nonetheless that comes from the unboxing experience when you unbox something that is so nicely done like this is. The top half pops out to reveal a physical warranty card, but you can also use a QR code which will then take you directly to the warranty page on their website, plus there's an email address also printed there should you have any initial issues. We then have another little pop out showing the Ubiq Trek range that doubles up as a kind of mini brochure with dimensions, specs and a bunch more renders. Beyond that, there is a little watch roll containing, surprise surprise, the watch. Now at this point you are getting into the options catalogue. The watch comes supplied with two straps. It comes supplied with a nylon NATO and a quick release strap made of recycled marine plastic, very much like the Maurice Lacroix icon that I looked at last week. The watch, as you see here on a titanium bracelet, this is a stretch goal and it's a cost option. If and when the campaign hits $35,000 US, this becomes a $99 US add-on. The bracelet's okay. I wouldn't necessarily regard it as a must-have though. I think there's already plenty happening and plenty of value in the package without spending the extra $100 on it. So what then is the Ubiq Trek? Well, there is a clue in the name. It's a field watch. It's lightweight thanks to its grade 2 titanium construction. It's durable thanks to the fact that that titanium is hardness coated. And it can be had with a choice of Japanese movements. Either the Seiko VH31 4-tick quartz or a Miyota 9000 automatic movement, depending on your preference and depending on your budget of course. Other niceties include drilled lugs for easy strap changes, a pleasing colour palette with full Lume dial options, and what is becoming an almost must-have for Microbrand watches in 2025, cast Lume block numerals on the dial. I think this is the fourth set that I've seen so far this year, and I'll say the same thing that I've said with all of the others, bring them on, I think they're great. So in terms of dimensions and specifications then, some of these are going to vary, so I will give you ranges today where appropriate. The diameter is fixed for all models though at 38mm, as is the thickness at 11.2. Lug to lug on all watches is a very nice and neat 43.6, 20 mils between the lugs. Now, wait, this is where things do start to vary. The quartz version of the watch is 10 grams lighter than the automatic. So, quartz on the recycled strap is the lightest combination, coming in at 45 grams. Automatic on the bracelet is the heaviest combination, and I use that word advisedly because the heaviest combination still only weighs 93 grams. 100 meters of water resistance with a screw down crown standard across all models, as is flat sapphire with AR undercoating, and as intimated, 2 choices of movements, either a Seiko VH31 or a Miyota 9039. Here you go then, here's the 2 watches side by side, and it's pretty clear which one is which. The VH is on the left, it ticks 4 times per second. The Miyota on the right, it ticks 8 times per second, so you do get a noticeably smoother sweep with the mechanical. However, even the Quartz is doing its best attempt at an impersonation of a mechanical watch with those 4 ticks. I'm sure you're probably familiar with both of these movements by now. The Seiko is becoming an increasingly popular, affordable alternative to a mechanical movement with its own set of pros and cons. The Miyota is quickly becoming the choice now for microbrands who want something a little bit more upmarket than a Seiko NH movement in their watch. There is a fair chunk of difference in the prices though. It will cost you an extra $130 or more than 50% again to go for the auto. So unless you're a die-hard Quartz hater, you should really have a think about how you're going to wear this watch before deciding on which of the 2 movements to go for. Case finish, well, I'll show you both because there are a couple of different alternatives. There's a stainless steel version, very nicely done. There's a fine brushing on the side of the case and on the upper lug surfaces. There is one high polish ring at the bottom edge of the bezel and a pronounced radial brushing to the top edge of the bezel. You can also see there is a groove to each of the lugs, just there to add a little bit of extra visual interest. Now the crown is an interesting one with the cubic U on the end, which looks remarkably like a C just turned 90 degrees. It's set there in a squircle. The crown itself has this kind of curved ripple pattern to it for extra grip. Not really necessary, but again, it does add extra visual interest. The DLC black has all of those finishes, but covered in black DLC coating instead. It should be noted that whilst the DLC watch also receives a further scratch-proof coating, it's not as hard as the coating on the steel watch, if you see what I mean. Look, if you really abuse your watches though, you already know that DLC is probably not the most sensible choice for you. Alright then, straps. I said that 2 straps were included as part of each package. The first is a perfectly decent colour matched NATO strap with quick release spring bars. Perhaps not super soft, but the quality seems reasonable and the matching hardware is very pleasant. DLC coated of course, if that was your choice of case finish. The second strap is advertised as recycled ocean plastic. I mean, you'd be hard pushed to tell that from handling it or looking at it, but hey, it's better in a watch strap than in the ocean, I suppose. It's leather backed for comfort and again features quick release spring bars and appropriately colour matched hardware. The bracelet is a stretch goal, so it will only become available to purchase if the campaign hits a certain target. Even then, it's not free, it's $99, but you can add one on. This is a kind of flat link Jubilee style, so 7 links, lots and lots of flex for comfort, and it's very lightweight. The bracelet on its own weighs under 50 grams with all links included. Again, the Ubik U sits proudly in its squircle on the clasp between the double pushers. It comes with 1 centimeter, 4 positions of tool-free on the fly adjustability using a ratcheting clasp mechanism. And in case you needed a further reminder, the etching on the base of the scissor assures you the watch is #ready for life. Yes. Talking of stretch goals, there are another couple that you don't have to pay for. The first of those, stretch goal 2, is yet another strap, an oil waxed leather, and it's clear that the Singaporean micros are in cahoots with each other because stretch goal 3 is an RZE branded EDC pouch. Those 2 extra freebies in combination are not to be sniffed at, by the way, especially if you go for one of the cheaper versions of the watch in the first place. The dial and hands on these watches are pretty cool. Brand owner Drayson must know of my deep love of blue dial watches because he sent me effectively both of the blue dial versions. As with the Jewel, the main dial colour is offset by a secondary colour. In the case of the automatic version here, they refer to as the Aqualight colourway. It's a rather fetching shade of green they have used, although I'll be honest, that's not necessarily the first colour I would have thought to juxtapose with dark blue. The Lume blocks look great. They're big, easy to read numerals at the 12, 3, 6 and 9 in classic Rolex Explorer field watch style. And there are further little squircles on the rest of the indices that sit inboard of a printed minute track. Indeed, the squircles sit on the end of extended printed 5-minute baton markers. There is also a raised outer chapter ring that features a set of 24-hour numerals interspersed between more white batons that are definitely there to provide balance rather than any utility. The other dial that I was sent is arguably the more interesting of the two though. This one they call Coral Glow. Not only is this dial full lume, as you'll see in a second, but there's a James Cameron-esque fade to it. But it fades from 1:30 to 7:30 rather than from 12 to 6, so it's a diagonal fade. I haven't seen this before. On paper it sounds all kinds of wrong, but in practice I think it kind of works. This Coral Glow version has grey accents, including on the surrounds to the hour hand and the second hand lollipop. The flat tapered hands are similar, but not identical to the ones used on the Jewel, by the way, and they are fully loomed. Overall, the Trek has a number of traditional field watch styling cues, but also a number of rather non-traditional elements of its own. Let's check out the lume, and I have to say the lume is very, very good on both of these watches. You're expecting good lume from cast Lume blocks and you're not disappointed here at all. But I spoke a couple of weeks ago about the hands of a watch also having to have excellent lume lest they are overwhelmed by the Lume blocks. And that's before we've even discussed the full lume dial on the right. It is outrageously bright initially, plus it has those Lume blocks and excellent hand lume. When I turn the speed up on both of these, the lume dial fades, but the blocks don't. And crucially, neither do the hands, meaning both watches still give a really clean read at the end of my test. Good job. All right, on wrist. You saw the dimensions, you heard the weight, you know what to expect here. It's super light, it's unobtrusive, it just kind of does its own thing, sitting on your wrist until you need it. Both of the supply straps are definitely going to need a little bit of breaking in though, especially that ocean plastic recycled one. Now these are prototypes, so I didn't quite have time to do that myself. Legibility on both dials is excellent. It's not a big watch, but the hands are clear, and who is going to miss those big cast Lume block Arabics? The optional bracelets are comfortable enough. There's no hair nipping at all despite the profusion of links, and you get 4 tool-free adjustment positions over about a centimetre thanks to the clasp. Hashtag ready for life indeed. There are no shortage of Explorer type watches already on the market, but Ubique definitely adds its own flavour, and I say again, the diagonal fade was a pleasant surprise on the full lume PVD version. Alright then, moans and niggles, what am I going to complain about today? I kind of alluded to the bracelet being okay if not outstanding. Titanium bracelets, they always tend to feel a little bit flimsy because of the lack of weight, and there is a lot of flex in this one. That's good for comfort, but yeah, like I said, I wouldn't regard this one as an essential component of the package. And I know it's a field watch, they're supposed to be a little bit sensible, but the colour schemes here don't quite grab you by the throat in the way that the colour schemes in their first release did. I think fairer are still the Microbrand poster boys for juxtaposing colour successfully. Maybe Ubique could have done one cheerful colour combo like these rather than the 4, by and large, very sensible options they chose. I guess though the colour choices were rather driven by the sales figures from their first offering. One thing I'm not going to complain about though today is the starter price, because $239 for a nicely styled coated titanium Lume block quartz with 2 straps and fancy packaging is really pretty good. Now I assume this one is going to hit all 3 of its stretch goals, so for your $239 you'll actually be getting a 3rd strap and that EDC pouch. It is $30 more if you want the full lume though, but then again they do cost a lot more to manufacture, so that's fair enough. The value equation begins to look slightly less appealing when you consider the auto, especially if you want it with the bracelet full lume dial. You're pushing $500 there, not quite the same deal I don't think as the sub 250 quartz just on the straps. I mean, it's not bad, but frankly, if I was in for one of these, I would be weighing up the pros and cons of quartz. A quartz movement actually suits this type of rugged knockabout, hashtag ready for life field watch anyway. So then, good luck to Ubik for watch number 2. Don't forget, if you're interested, best thing to do is to sign up for email notification of launch within Kickstarter. I think the price is very much right here in a way that it wasn't quite right with the first offering. I'll be confident that they'll sell a lot more than 70 of these. While you're here, why not check out my review of the Dual or one of its close cousins from RZE instead. Thanks for watching this one. I'll see you again in the next one.